This is KM Wyland, and you are listening to the 159th episode of the Wordplay Podcast. The best editors are those who understand exactly what you're trying to accomplish in a story, and who then show you where you're falling short. I was lucky enough to get to benefit from the help of just such an editor, my longtime critique partner, Adriella Ashford, this week. I had been struggling with confusion and frustration with my historical work in progress, The Deepest Breath, and was desperately in need of some objective feedback. Adri came through, as she always does, and helped me see exactly where the story was succeeding and what I needed to do to improve it. She'll be putting out her editing shingle on the web soon, and I highly recommend her services. When her site is up, I'll be sharing the URL. In addition to mulling on Deepest and editing Dreamlander, I'm also chugging along on the Outlining Your Novel workshop. I'm excited about all the new material I'm able to share and the new depths the workshop is allowing me to plumb in the evergreen subject of outlining. I hope students will enjoy learning from it as much as I'm enjoying putting it together. Is your character stagnating? The latest post in the video series on my blog points out two ways in which your protagonist's arc may have stalled. To watch it, visit my blog at wordplay-kmwyland, that's weiland.blogspot.com. New videos are posted every Wednesday. And now, I hope you enjoyed this week's podcast. 5 reasons to write your scenes in order, and 3 not to. Should you ever write scenes out of order? Here you are, ready to start in on a new story, and you have one particular scene just begging to be written. Maybe it's the scene that inspired the story, or maybe it's just an easier scene than the one you're currently faced with. If you go ahead and write that scene now, will it harm your overall story? Or, just maybe, will taking a non-linear storytelling approach offer untold benefits? The answers to these questions aren't absolute. Ultimately, your personality and writing style, and even individual story, will determine what works best for you. As a decidedly linear storyteller, and an outliner on top of it, I've only rarely written a scene out of order, and even then, only when I've realized I needed to go back and insert a scene into previously written chapters. Most writers follow that same path. Linear writing just makes sense. It creates a forward-moving expansion of time, just like our own lives. But some writers find writing scenes out of order actually frees their creativity. So what should you do? Let's explore some of the benefits to both linear and non-linear writing so you can decide for yourself. 5 reasons to write your scenes in order. 1. You'll be able to maintain natural evolution and continuity. When we write stories in their natural order, we're able to organically build their arcs. Each piece fits together because each piece builds upon the previous one without any unnecessary finagling. 2. You won't waste time on unnecessary scenes. Sometimes those killer scenes we envision early on end up not working out like we think they will. We can save ourselves time and the heartache of killing some darlings if we can spot extraneous or incorrect scenes before we write them. 3. You won't lose steam on the less interesting scenes. If you run ahead of yourself and write all those juicy scenes, what are you going to have to look forward to as you slog through the necessary transitions that remain? 4. You'll be able to better track your overall story. If your scenes are all hither and yon, you'll likely have a harder time keeping track of where they fit within the overall plan. But if you write them in order, you can watch your story arc build naturally and better spot areas that aren't quite working. 5. You can avoid ending up with a bunch of brilliant pieces that don't fit together. All those wonderful scenes you're in a hurry to write may indeed be brilliant in their own right, but by the time you're finished, they may not fit together quite as seamlessly as you were hoping. 3 reasons not to write your scenes in order. 1. You'll remember scene ideas. Our memories can be slippery little devils. Sometimes the only way to make certain we'll remember a scene in all its white-hot glory is to go ahead and write it down, even if it doesn't yet fit into the linear scheme of things. 2. You'll be able to move past blocks. Sometimes you're stumped on a particular part of your story to the point that the whole book is stalled. You're faced with either walking away from the story for a while, writing anyway and hoping you strike gold, or moving on to a different scene. All three are viable options, but the latter offers the extra benefit of potentially giving you new insight into your story, which can then help you see around your block. 3. You'll be able to work backwards to discover how best to build up to important scenes. In outlining your novel, Map Your Way to Success, I suggest the technique of reverse outlining to help you understand the cause and effect between important scenes. The same technique can work just as well, if not quite as tidily, in your first draft. If you know where you need to go, sometimes it can then be easier to figure out what you need to do to get there. Although most writers choose storytelling methods that are predominantly linear or nonlinear, this doesn't have to be an either-or decision. No matter which method works best for you, you may find it worthwhile to occasionally experiment with different techniques, both to gain a new perspective on your work and to perhaps find a new tool for your writing workbag. Thank you for listening to the Wordplay Podcast. To read a transcript of this episode, visit me on the web at wordplay-kmwyland, that's weiland.blogspot.com, and be sure to listen again next week.